Is what makes Lincoln great. So the most important things that we found out, there's a lot, but 5 were the ones that stood out, and it's very important for the overall reading that we made. So number 1 is strength to acquire fundamental goals, ability to control emotions, capacity to listen to different points of view, firm in decisions, and ability to communicate goals and visions.
All right, a power quote: try ballots first. When ballots don't work, use bullets. We feel like this embodies all of chapter 8, and if you take away one thing, it's this quote. It ties in a lot of the main points of the chapter and really just solidifies our whole presentation, which is why we built it around this quote. And now Nelson will introduce Lincoln's goals.
Okay, so according to this chapter, part of what goes into being a good leader is the ability to make decisions as well as lead with a firm hand. I want to talk about one of Lincoln's characteristics that helped him out in both these areas, and that was his strength to adhere to his end fundamental goals. During his presidency, he set clear goals and had a clear vision for what he wanted the nation to be, and he used those to kind of shape his decisions. And I think when he was faced with a tough decision, that's what made it a little bit easier. And we related that back to the third habit that we talked about from Covey's book, of beginning with the end in mind. And that just stresses the importance of having that end vision and using it to dictate your day-to-day actions and shape your decisions. And as for leading with a firm hand, we talked about a principle from the book that was about Lincoln's reluctancy to give up his key points of strength to his opponents. During the Civil War, he was faced with a lot of times where he faced pressure to give in to the South and give in to their demands because so much blood was being shed and so much lives were being lost. But he stayed firm in what he believed would bring the North success. And I think that can be applied to any type of business situation with any leadership style. It's important to know what your strengths are and use those to make your decisions. And if you end up giving a little bit here and there to your opponent, you're going to end up with a lot more than you intended. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Thank you. So another main point of this chapter was Lincoln was adamant about controlling your emotions, not letting your emotions get the best of you. And he dealt with this in a variety of ways. One really interesting way that I thought was if he was very angered, if he was angry at somebody or a situation, instead of talking with them and maybe having an elevated conversation, he would go back and he would write a letter and just let everything out into this letter. He would never publish them. He would just have these letters be a way to get rid of his emotions and get that anger out of his system. And I think this leads into kind of less reaction and more reflection, that you should take the time to really think about why you're angry and what has caused that situation, and not use so much reaction and just blow up on somebody because he felt that that really didn't have a productive end from those situations. He also was really firm on not crushing people. He was a great guy, he was a tall guy, and he very easily could have both physically but also emotionally kind of crushed people. But he wanted to better understand people and work with them to further their goals together. And he learned to work with people that he didn't like so much. He gave an example, Secretary Treasury of his put in resignations 4 times. He kept just getting really mad and saying, I resign, Lincoln. And 4 times he did that and he didn't actually resign. And on the 4th time, Lincoln, he surprised him and he said, I accept your resignation, thank you. And he kind of forced him out of office because that kind of goes with the quote, try ballots first. He tried to be diplomatic. He tried to level with this member of his cabinet. But after that failed, he had to go with an aggressive approach. He chose to actually let go of this person and have someone else who was maybe better poised to take over the position. So with that, we have an example of someone not really controlling their emotions very well.
The only problem with Microsoft is they just have no taste. They have absolutely no taste. And what that means is, I don't mean that in a small way, I mean that in a big way. In the sense that they don't think of original ideas, and they don't bring much culture into their product. And you say, well, why is that important? Well, proportionally spaced fonts come from typesetting and beautiful books. That's where one gets the idea. if it weren't for the Mac, they would never have that in their products. And so I guess I am saddened, not by Microsoft's success. I have no problem with their success. They've earned their success, for the most part. I have a problem with the fact that they just make really third-rate products. Their products have no spirit to them. Their products have no sort of spirit of enlightenment about them. They are very pedestrian. And the sad part is that most customers don't have a lot of that spirit either. But the way that we're going to ratchet up our species is to take the best and to spread it around to everybody so that everybody grows up with better things and starts to understand the subtlety of these better things. And Microsoft's just, it's McDonald's. So that's what saddens me. Not that Microsoft has won, but that Microsoft's products don't display more insight and more creativity.
So just going back, we felt Lincoln would not approve of Steve Jobs' approach in this sense, that he really let the emotions get the best of him, and this was a small example of that. I'm sure you guys know all about Steve Jobs at this point. But if Lincoln did let his emotions get the upper hand on him, what he would do is the next day, he would write that person or that party a letter stating that he didn't hold a grudge, that he intended no hard feelings, to move that relation forward in a beneficial way and kind of make up for maybe if he did let his humanistic response of having emotion get the best of him. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to the capacity to listen to different viewpoints.
Thank you. So Lincoln held a new view of leadership. He encouraged collaboration over controlling his subordinates. Instead, he really he empowered them to basically take their own actions and think critically on their own. So this gave him an appearance of being very humble and not above anyone. He wanted to help out, and everyone was on an equal level with him and take responsibility on their own. His ability to listen to opposing viewpoints made him one of the best persuaders of all time. Basically, he could connect with people instantly, and he could turn their argument and basically add it to his own. For this reason, Lincoln could always control a conversation, but never leave an unpleasant impression. This is considered his strongest leadership trait. Another one of his traits was his decision-making. Lincoln thought things through well in advance and never made rash decisions. He used the classic model, and at the foundation of this model is obtaining all the facts, or gaining all the information you can. And he took so much pride in this, he went out in the field and often obtained the information in person. And so once he had the facts and information, he could quickly formulate possible solutions and then weigh in the consequences of those solutions. This should all sound very familiar because we use this model every day in our lives. For example, when my parents bought their first plasma, I was charged with doing the research for them. So when we got to Best Buy, I already had an idea of what exact model of TV we wanted. Sure, you can listen to the Best Buy rep, but he's not going to tell me anything I don't already know. Basically, Lincoln used the exact same thought process to make tough decisions in office a lot easier on him. And now Michelle will introduce Lincoln's decisiveness.
Okay, so it's very good to be firm in your own decisions. So we came up with 2 good traits that actually relate with Lincoln, which was being decisive and tough. As Micah explained, he wasn't tough in a bad way or mean or anything like that, but he knew what he wanted and how he wanted it done. So it's something very, very relatable that we saw with the chapters and the person that he is. Another important thing that we took out was that you got to take a slant. So have clear goals, have incentives, and just go for what you want, but be aware of what you're going towards. Like, don't just do stuff because you want to make it happen. Do it once you know what you're searching for, and which is understanding what you're going towards. And being decisive does not mean just taking a choice or a decision very quickly and going with it. It's making arguable arguments, making understandable footprints to follow in order to get what you want and what you want to make out of it. So you have to weigh in your consequences and have a plan B, because if that first plan doesn't work, then you can't go back again and start from zero. It would take way too long, and what you want to happen will probably not happen either.
And the last concept that we pulled out of the chapter, as far as Lincoln's concepts or whatever, on leadership, was his ability to communicate goals and vision. So before actually talking about how he did it, the way he was able, or his foundation, which enabled him to do this, is his transparency. He was like completely transparent with everybody. He believed that everybody deserved to know what he was doing, which is why they kind of dubbed him the people's president. By doing this, he gained credibility with all of people in his audience, as well as trustworthiness and reliability. So if you're trying to communicate a goal and vision, first it's important to kind of have that relationship with your subordinates, I guess. And then when he was actually telling people about the goal or the vision, it was first about what the actual goal is, clearly defining that. But then the most important part is why. So like what you're going to actually achieve by getting to this goal. Why it's good for you, the people, why it's good for our country as a whole. And I mean, in business situations, that's obviously applicable. Like, it's not far more valuable to get everyone below you to be passionate about pursuing a certain path as a business than to just forcing something on people. But at the same time, even though he did value that, if push came to shove and he'd already made a decision, I mean, he was willing to go that extra step and use bullets on that note.
And that brings us right back to our beginning quote, try ballots first, when ballots don't work, use bullets. And this is a glimpse into Lincoln's thought process when making a tough decision. He balances very perfectly, actually, feedback and decisiveness. He takes a stance when he needs to, but he takes into account other people's position and situation when he is making those decisions. So with this, we hope you guys have a little more insight on Lincoln and him being decisive and leading with a firm hand. Now we'll take any questions you might have. Thank you.